Good afternoon. This is Dr. Ollie Jones. I am the president of the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Care Coalition, and we're excited about the presenter we have here today from Ohio Can. So ask that you get comfortable and take notes because great information is going to be coming to you. Our speaker today is Julia Donovan. She is the statewide program director for Ohio Can. And she joined as the founding program director of Ohio Can, a new statewide kinship and adoption navigator program developed in partnership with the state of Ohio. Prior to Connect, Julia was the employment service director at Lincoln, better known as LEAP. Most folks know it as LEAP, which works to advance preparation and equality in social in society for people with disabilities in Northeast Ohio. She has a wealth of knowledge and information in that area. She also worked to increase the effectiveness in the LEAP program. And previously, or should I say prior to that, for 8 years, she worked, am I getting ahead of myself? Prior to her years of tenure at LEAP, she worked in a nonprofit sector, managing volunteers. Teaching therapeutic writing, which sounds very interesting, for people with disabilities, and fundraising. She holds an executive MBA from Case Western University and a bachelor from Heron College. Before she comes on, I'll make a couple announcements in regards to our next speaker for next month will be Nancy Mendoza, Ohio State University. They're working on a special kinship care project, and she'll be coming on next month to share that initiative. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Julia. Welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. Really appreciate that introduction. I also have here with me today my colleague, Amber Robinson. So she is our benefits coordinator, and we're really excited that she's going to be joining us on this call today. Before I jump into my presentation, I always like to give a couple of disclaimers. One, I can be very easily distracted by shiny objects. So what that means is I do have a little bit of a hard time presenting and monitoring the chat. However, with that being said, Dr. Ollie Jones and Lisa said that they would help me monitor that chat. I'm very, very open to questions along the way. So if you needed to come off mute to ask a question, that's totally okay. And also putting it in the chat works as well. So no worries either way. Hopefully our internet connection stays good, but if not, I do have a hotspot right next to me. So if I need to switch over, I will do that very quickly. There are a couple of familiar names and faces on this call today. So happy to see all of you, and feel free. We've got some site partners in this meeting as well. So Patrick, not to call you out, but if you wanted to share anything along the way, you're more than welcome to as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen here. And so give me just a minute to transition. That would be great. Hold on one second. Okay. All right, here we go. All right, you should all be able to see that. I'm going to go ahead and officially start it from the beginning here. Amber, if you could give me the thumbs up or the nod that you can see it, perfect. Okay, so we are here to talk about Ohio Can, which is the Kinship and Adoption Navigator program. And this is just a little get to know you. So the presentation is going to start at a really high level and sort of an overview for those of you who aren't familiar with Ohio Can. And then we'll sort of, as we progress, we'll sort of dive deeper and get into some really specifics about the services that families are receiving. We'll talk about some of the data that we've collected over the last 18, 19 months. And then also we'll have Amber share with us some insights from her work in the benefits realm. And then, of course, we will leave plenty of time for questions. And again, feel free to ask questions along the way. I'm fully supportive of that and actually enjoy it too. So I hope that we can have a two-way conversation today, because I like to hear from folks as well and have them share their insights too. All right, so here we go. Getting to know Ohio Can. So this is what our statewide team looks like. We've got myself, and then Veronica Burrows is our project manager. I'm sure many of you know Veronica at OGKC. And then Amber Phelps, our statewide program manager. Ray, our program statewide coordinator. Very excited that Roxana Bell, many of you on this call might know Roxana Bell, was promoted to be one of our statewide trainers for Ohio Can, the past program, and as well as some of the work we're doing with youth. So very excited about that. Teresa Scrimenti, and then of course, Amber Robinson, who's our benefits coordinator, who is here with us today. So what is Ohio Can? Ohio Can is the statewide flexible and responsive kinship and adoption navigator program that is really designed to help children, caregivers, and families. We are organized into 10 regions. So this is the map of our regions, and we know they don't follow any other regions, but this is the way that we broke it up to try to equalize it population-wise across the state. We believe that it's really important to partner with local communities. So, Connect is based in Cuyahoga County, so up in Region 3. We don't know a ton about what's happening in Region 8, so we've hired folks that live in Region 8 and then partnered, of course, with Muskingum and County Children's Services down in Region 8, so that we really have sort of that local knowledge to make sure that we know all the resources and the families have comfort with the folks that are serving them in their particular area. So we're really excited about that. Who does Ohio Can serve? We serve any kinship and adoptive family residing in Ohio. We also serve both formal and informal kinship families. So the definition for us of a formal kinship family is a family involved in the child welfare system. And then we also serve families who have adopted privately, publicly, or internationally. Everyone is welcome here. So we have a very intentional focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. And we're 100% committed to making sure that kinship families, every kinship family in Ohio is able to get some of the supports that they're looking for. We take our equity pieces very seriously. We've been working with the Center for the Study of Social Policy, as well as Chapin Hall out of the University of Chicago, particularly this last year, really focusing, actually the last 2 years, on race equity and how equity shows up in our work, and really trying to create some systemic change around how we are interfacing with all people across the state. We believe, so I always tell people that this is the most important slide whenever I'm presenting. So something that we say all the time at Ohio Canland is we believe families. So we believe families are inherently capable of finding solutions to the circumstances and challenges they face. And if you remember nothing else of this presentation today, the line, sort of our mantra is that we believe families. And we really sort of live and breathe that. And when we're having discussions, we'll say, how do we feel about this decision? Does it align with we believe families or doesn't align with we believe families? And so we really try to stay very, very grounded in this idea that families are the experts and that we're just here to support them along their journey. And we had a really nice comment from a family that was shared with me last week that said that sent a text to the Navigator and said, thank you for not trying to fix me. I appreciate just you supporting me. And so that was a really nice sort of affirmation on our we believe families. This is our theory of change. So for Ohio Can, we have we call them sort of two tracks that we are working on. The first is the family track. We are really looking to make sure that caregivers and their families are supported in ways that are important, both culturally, socially, emotionally for them. We also want to make sure, of course, that children experience positive outcomes. And we do that by informing families of the resources that are available, both locally and on a statewide level. We always want to connect those families to those referrals and programs. And then we also want to collaborate when possible with families. And Amber will talk about what collaboration looks like a little later. But we also want to make sure that we're offering what we call individual advocacy and support. So we are not doing case management, and we're not doing any diagnostic or therapeutic interventions, and therefore we refer to it as an individual advocacy and support. It's very directed by the family. The family identifies what kind of support they would like for us. One interesting piece that we've learned along the way, we sort of had, when you're designing and implementing things, you're not 100% sure how everything's going to go. And at the beginning, we had thought that families would maybe want a touch point with us once a month or so. And our data is showing that families in that collaborate level of services really prefer to meet with us once a week. So we were really excited about that and a little bit surprised. Rightfully or wrongfully so, but we really have thought about how we can continue to tailor our services to meet that need of families. On the other side is our support for communities. So we also want to make sure that we're promoting community awareness. We're really trying to work on sort of the stigma and making sure that people know that they can seek that equitable and inclusive support. We are doing that by lots of our outreach and branding and making connections through the support of our regional advisory councils, and really working to continue partnerships. So partnerships is a huge value of Ohio Can. Again, we have this idea that we want to take sort of our best and smartest people and all of your best and smartest people, including those with lived expertise. I mean, that's probably one of the most important things, and making sure that we're really designing something on a community level to support families and build that awareness. And so we're always looking to fill gaps and barriers on this sort of level of our community track. And so we'll talk a little bit later about some ways that we're trying to plug some of the holes that are in the system. These are our values. So we did just actually redo our values. So this might be the first time some of you have seen our new values. I am going to read them out loud. I think they're really important, and we did do quite a bit of work on these to make sure that we were being fully inclusive. But our values are CARES, and that's really children and families. So we value children and families and are determined to keep their stability and well-being as our primary drivers. Accountability, this is a big one for me. This one happens to align with one of my personal values. We value integrity and transparency. We do what we say and say what we do. We regularly reflect on our practice to ensure we're always learning how we can respond in the most appropriate and consistent ways. Also really value respect. We value the diversity of families and hold the belief that everyone deserves to be treated with dignity and thoughtfulness. Engagement, we value the voice of all kinship and adoptive families that will partner with them. Knowing their perspective is the foundation on which we build. Again, that's really that idea of co-creating, and that we believe families and we know that they're the experts of their lives. We intentionally advocate alongside people of color and others marginalized by systems to save solutions affecting their lives. And really for us, what that means is being really mindful of the ways that people of color have disparate outcomes and disproportionality within the system, and how can we make sure that we're not contributing to that inequality. Strengths, we value every family's strengths and believe everyone can contribute to their solutions. We believe families and honor them as the experts in their own situation. The ways that we serve families. So we have inform, connect, and collaborate. So inform is just our website and publicly available resources. Connect is that navigation and referrals, and then Collaborate is the individual advocacy for families seeking more engagement. And don't worry, we're going to break that down. So the need continues to grow. So we have used information from the Ohio Grant Facts and grant families to update this number. It was last updated in April 2021. Anybody have a guess on what the need is? You can put it in the chat, which I happen to not be able to see for the record in presenter mode, but didn't know if anybody had a guess on the needs, sort of how many families we think would be eligible, both informal, and adoptive families within the state of Ohio. And Amber, I can see you. Do we have any guesses? No guesses. Be brave, people, be brave. Anybody want to come off mute and share what they think the number would be? Any wild guesses? Ooh, 200,000, 250,000. Yes, very good, team. Thank you, Barb and Angela. Appreciate you. So we believe right now it's about 239,000. So very, very good guesses, Angela and Barb. It feels like you know a little bit about Kinship. And I know that you both do. And so we know that the need is quite high in the state of Ohio. So we're working to do our very best to make sure that we're reaching out to as many families and caregivers as we can. What services do we offer? So we offer that one-on-one support. We work directly with families via phone, text, or email. I should also add on there Zoom. So we have definitely had a plethora actually of Zoom calls with families. That is the one thing the pandemic has helped us do, is sort of jump into the new century of technology. And so most people are pretty comfortable on Zoom or other platforms. And so we're able to do that. We provide the personalized resources from our information hub, and we're committed. We have a very, very dedicated staff. So we've got that one-on-one support, really customizing our plans and that dedicated staff. What should families expect? So when they call, we talk directly with that family. Our goal is to answer as many calls as humanly possible, and we're pretty good at that. So most of the time, folks get a live person, and they work with you to really understand the needs, where you're at, and really working together to see if they can help the family and support the family. When families call, we do go through what we call the Ohio CAN basics. And this is where the family identifies as something as challenging, some not challenging, or very challenging. And we ask them in these 8 particular buckets. It's sort of just how we stratify and think about the work so that we can analyze some of the information that we're gaining. And that, I will again share that a little bit later in the presentation. But the main areas are basic needs, legal, childcare, education, and child development, child social support, child health, caregiver support, and caregiver health. So I'd like you to think about in your head, and I'll ask it a little later, what you think the top areas, and you can go ahead and feel free to put it in the chat, but what is sort of your guess on the top areas of needs for kinship and adoptive families? And then we'll share that. What should families expect? Continued. So really that resource review. So your Navigator is going to use the, we call it the Ohio CAN Information Hub. It's got over 7,000 records. I think it's actually over 8,000 now. It works, it's pretty slick, but it helps you organize all the resources available based on your location, your needs, and your particular situation. And then we also send out a personalized plan. So we'll dive into these a little bit deeper in a couple minutes here, but the plan is really that personalized document that really helps sort of chart the course, if you will, for the navigator in that particular family. Follow-up, we do follow-up on all families. We really want to make sure that the resources are working and that the family doesn't have any additional needs. We really encourage people to come back to us as many times as they need to. We're sort of here indefinitely. There isn't a hard timeline. Like you can't, it's not like, oh, you can only get served 3 times. It's in perpetuity. So we really like to make sure that we are following up and also wanting to make sure that the resources we're sending are working for that particular family or addressing their needs. Lots of times in follow-up, additional needs pop up, or we see that a particular need was resolved, and that has been really good to connect with families on the follow-up aspect as well. The family navigation journey. So if a family calls in, they visit our website or get our phone number. We are actually getting a lot of calls based on our radio ads. So I don't know if anybody on this call has heard some of our radio ads, but that has been shockingly fruitful. We did it as sort of, hey, let's try this out. Let's see if this works. And it's working quite well for us. So radio has been actually our very best mode of reaching families. And we see upticks in our calls directly corresponding to the times that those radio ads are being run across the state. We have the statewide website. So some of you might have seen ohiocan.jfs.ohio.gov. And then, of course, we have the Ohio Can line, which is the way that most people enter through our system. We're here 8:30 to 6:30 every Monday through Friday. When the family connects with us, we're going to guide them through our information hub. Again, looking at that basics assessment and really walking them through all those pieces of information. We are very, very open. Families can provide us as much or as little information as they would like. We really work. All of our staff are trauma trained, and all of our staff have been sort of taught the motivational interviewing methodology. And so trying to have more of open conversation rather than, tick, tick, tick this box. That is always our goal, and being really flexible and responsive to families is also really important for us. This is our statewide information hub. So this little screen here is exactly what the information hub looks like. It's pretty gosh darn slick, if I do say so myself. So you can put in the caregiver name, their address, the service areas. You can do a search within 5 miles of the person's house, within 20 miles of the person's house. We do use on the back end the same thing that Google Maps uses. So we actually partner with them to get some of the mapping technology, which is exciting. But it's pretty cool because once you pinpoint it, you can look at where the person's house is versus where the services are. And then you can look through the services and add them to the binder for the family. So we call it a binder. It's electronic, but it's sort of individual resources. And you can see here that in Columbus, for food, financial, housing, and assistance within 30 miles of Sally's house, we came up with 371 places. One of the things that we did put in to this particular search and referral system is we really wanted to make sure that families, like I said, during follow-up, that families were getting what they needed. And we actually have a star rating system in the system, much like a Yelp review would work. So if a family calls us back and says, hey, sorry, Clintonville Beechwood Community Resource Center, I'm going to pick on you for a minute. But let's say that the Clintonville Community Resource Center didn't have the right hours, the family couldn't get a hold of them. We actually have a way within the system to designate, hey, this wasn't a great resource right now. The family wasn't able to get served. Sort of be caution and, give it a 1 star. Now, on the flip side, Clintonville might be amazing. And we want to make sure that every navigator that's working in the state knows that Clintonville is amazing. So you can put a 5-star review in and say like, hey, my family, this resource center went really above and beyond for our family. It was amazing. And that's sort of our way of trying to make sure that we have some quality control within where we're sending families to, because we don't want to send them to dead end resources. And that is going to take time for us to build up that skill set and that knowledge. But we're really glad that we have that ability sort of on our end through that follow-up loop to be able to really identify how the services are working for families. This just gets a little bit even closer down. We can also, sort of put things in the binder, take things out of the binder. The family navigation journey. So once they complete sort of that, once we complete the resource review, each family does get a report with their recommended resources. This is exactly what it looks like. So, dear Sally, thank you for calling us. And then we also can add a personalized note. So kind of in the blue section at the bottom, we can say, hey, Sally, it was really great to talk to you today. When you call the First Community Church, make sure you ask for Becky Johnson. She's great. Her extension is actually extension 204. If you call her directly and tell her that you talked to me at Ohio Can, she'll definitely help you out. So really trying to use our community connections. We talked about that at the beginning with that really regionalized approach, trying to use our community connections to really increase access and advantage for families, and sort of be, hey, we know who you need to know, and utilizing our social capital and our community presence to be able to help families hopefully get more access to services than they would if they were trying on their own. We then, again, do that follow-up for families. This is an important slide that we just always want to make sure that we talk about, is that we are not intended to replace other kinship programs. We know that there's a lot of really great kinship programs, and in fact, Ohio Can was based very heavily on Protect Ohio, and of course they're through the Clearinghouse, which is pretty exciting, and really just working to supplement each other throughout the entire state, and just working in collaboration with each other. So Ohio Can reach to date. So this is where we get into some of the data pieces. So we have received, and this is from when we started in October, I think technically we started October 5th, 2020. So building a brand new program in the pandemic has been lots of fun, but that's a whole conversation for a different day. We've learned a lot of things along the way, but really proud that we've served 4,064 families from all 88 counties. So we see every single month the trend upticking and upticking and upticking. I looked at our call log yesterday, and just for the month of May, we've already received 470 calls, and I'm sure that's even higher today. So we are really excited about the way that the program is building, and just really grateful that the word is getting out there and continues to get out there, both through word of mouth and through our outreach efforts. Oops, a little fast there. So I thought this might be interesting. This is actually from our database. So we use a program called Tableau to pull our data. And this is from the beginning of folks that we have served, and you can see that 52% are grandparents. What's always really interesting is the great uncle and great grandparents. So they represent 7%, cousins, adoptive parents, other kin, and siblings. So this is just a nice visual showing you around the state of Ohio where our particular families are coming from. We also see that our formal kinship is at 62%. Excuse me, again, for us, formal kinship is anybody who has had child welfare involvement, and that informal kinship. We are working very diligently to try to increase our informal kinship numbers. And actually, we've seen that increase again with our radio ads and some of our social media pieces. And we're really grateful for that. And also, we know that that population is a hard population to reach, right? Because they're not involved in any other system and may be weary of the system as well. And so just really trying to do as much stewardship with that particular group of people as we possibly can. Next up, this is a very busy slide, but do not worry, we will debrief it and get a little bit deeper. So, Angela, I see your question. I'm very proud of myself for shiny objects. Are diverted kinship families included in the formal and informal statistics? So I believe, and I'm never quite an expert sometimes on some of these really specific questions, so I will do my very best. If the family shares with us that they're on a safety plan, we would consider them formal. However, not all families share with us that they were on a safety plan, and therefore they would be informal. So we don't actually, quote unquote, check people's statuses. So we know that people being diverted from the formal system is happening quite often, but we don't have concrete, I don't have like really hard specifics on what that is exactly looking like. But if the family discloses, we would consider it formal. And if they do not disclose or share that with us, they would fall into the informal. So I hope that helps, Angela. And it really, again, we don't ask for any documentation for eligibility. So we just base it on the word of the family that they're sharing with us. So, but this slide is, again, a little bit busy. But we will break it down. It's really just showing what benefits families are receiving, what they think they're not eligible for, what they think they are eligible for. You can see that many of our families that we're serving don't have services from a prior kinship or adoptive service. So I'm just showing just that it's not that there weren't other programs out there, but being more pocketed in counties and smaller agencies, we've really had a big breadth and depth to be able to serve more of those families. And I think that's really just based around us being able to advertise across the state. And then we're going to talk about family needs. So I'm going to dive deeper into this in a second, but I did ask you all to think about the top 3 needs. So unfortunately, there's a spoiler alert, and you can see them here if you're doing quick math and reshuffling of bar charts. But for us, what we're seeing is basic needs is 66%, childcare is 45%, and caregiver support is 42%. So really interesting about the basic needs. So Amber has been with us just over a year, 14 months. Amber, is that correct? I think I'm correct. Really close. 14, 15?
Something like that.
Yeah.
12? Wait, yeah.
No, it's longer than 12, 14. Yeah. So when we started getting, Ohio Can's been collecting a lot of data from day one. And one of the really interesting things we saw, and I'm going to just flip back to this, is how many folks were not on statewide benefits. And we were like, that's really interesting, because there's, particularly some things down in here that we think a lot of people could potentially benefit, OWF being one, that we were just like, this is really curious. I wonder what's going on here. And so what we decided to do is that this basic needs has stayed firm as our number one area of what families are needing across the state. And so we talked about, hey, what can we do to really help families with benefits? We know benefits are immensely complicated. We know they're complex. We know that counties administer benefits in different ways. Some counties have PASS, some counties don't have PASS. Everything is just a little bit different depending on where you live. And so we have this great idea, actually through the help of our folks with lived experience. We pulled a mini focus group together and said, hey, what can we do about some of these things? And one of the big areas that came up was very few agencies have just benefits people to help navigate the benefit system. And so therefore our idea around needing a benefits person came to fruition, and we now have Amber Robinson. And so I'm going to turn it over to her to share a little bit about what she is learning and seeing in the benefits coordination world.
Thank you, Julia. Hi, everyone. So again, my name is Amber. I am the benefits coordinator with Ohio Can. So I am supporting the team in Ohio Can as well as families with all things benefits. So what that looks like is supporting our families with any questions that they have about benefit eligibility, helping them navigate that, any issues that come up with appeals process. So for example, if a family has already applied for a benefit, but they've received a denial letter, helping them navigate the ins and outs of that, supporting them through that process. And then individualized support with applications. Sometimes we have families that may need some support in filling out, for example, a PASS application or a PRC application, because those can vary county by county. So working with those families to answer any questions, walk them through that process. And then any extra challenges or barriers that families are running into, I can support them with that. So what that looks like is when families are agreeable to those additional services that we can provide in Ohio Can or collaborate services, a navigator connects that family with me, and we all work as a team to hone in on those needs that the families has. And as Julia mentioned, those basic needs are really the needs that families mention a lot. So financial assistance, helping with childcare. We talk about different kinship and adoption financial assistance programs that families can access. So pretty much just making sure the families have what they need, have the information that they need, and then helping them specifically navigate those systems. So sometimes that may look like calling on behalf of a family if they're agreeable to that, if they're running into any issues. So calling, for example, JFS or any other entity that oversees these benefit programs to take that burden off of the family as much as we can to ensure that they are getting what they need. So I did want to just briefly touch on, and it kind of goes a little bit into the other slide Julia showed about some of the basic needs and benefits that families are accessing, but I wanted to show, is that on the next slide, Julia? Yes, okay. So this is some data here. So what I do is when I am speaking with families, and right now I work more collaboratively with, well, I do work collaboratively with C1 families. So that's half of the state where those families can engage in those additional services or benefits coordination. So I have been tracking benefit barriers and gaps that families are running into and the types of programs specifically families are wanting to learn more about and access. So here's just a little bit of data that puts more insight into the specific benefit programs that I'm noticing that families are needing support with, either connecting with, running into barriers or issues with. So we have the top ones being more so the kinship specific benefits. So kinship caregiver program, the kinship permanency incentive program, and then Ohio Works First Child Only, PRC, Prevention, Retention, and Contingency Plan, SNAP, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, and then publicly funded childcare. So kind of again, thinking back to that slide, this kind of ties into the fact that those higher needs that families note are financial assistance or basic needs, and these are the top programs that we're trying to assist families in connecting with. In addition to the support that I provide to the families, I also provide just support to our navigators, support to staff by providing trainings just to ensure that they have all the tools that they need in order to support families as well and helping them navigate the world of benefits. I think is that the last slide? Okay. And if anyone has any questions too, just like Julia, I'm open to it. Go ahead and put it in the chat, or you can come off mute and ask any questions specifically.
Thank you, Amber.
You're welcome.
As we sort of continue along here, wanted to really talk about the fact that we also had caregiver support as being quite high of a need for us. So I know Angela is here. So I thought, Angela, I'm very sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe if you wanted to hop in and just talk a little bit about our partnership with Kinship Caregivers Connect. I may have missed Angela. Okay, don't see Angela. So I'll take over for Angela. No worries, Angela. I am putting you on the spot, but really excited about our partnership with Kinship Caregivers Connect. So we, luckily, Barb connected us with Angela, sort of, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to hit that slide, back in the early days of Ohio Can, and said, hey, there's this great program for kinship families. We're very supportive of it. The funding will be running out with Ohio State. Would you be interested in potentially partnering with Angela and her program to provide kinship support across the state? And we were very interested in this because one, it was the middle of the pandemic, and two, Angela was doing virtual weekly meetings, or every other week. I think it's weekly. Or every other, yeah, it's weekly, weekly meetings. And we really wanted to be able to support that and keep that going, because we knew that there weren't a lot of options across the state, especially in those more rural areas. And we really wanted to make sure that we could keep that good thing that she had going. And so we're happy that we supported her and the Kinship Caregivers Connect last year. And we'll also be supporting her this year as well. So, and she's expanding in her partnership and has really done a tremendous job and is working to figure out sort of how we can expand and what all of that will look like. And we are just deeply appreciative of that work, because it is the third greatest need that we're seeing for families, and we didn't really have a way to sort of expand that. She's also working on a pilot in Region 9, which is the Cincinnati area, to really work with families on a more regional level. So kind of testing the difference between a statewide sort of open group and then a more regional group. So Lenore, thank you for weekly on Thursdays. I almost said Tuesdays in my out loud voice, so I'm glad and I was like, that doesn't feel right. So thank you for that. But we're really excited about that. Yeah, oh yeah, Tuesdays. It is Tuesdays. Yay, it is Tuesdays. I thought Tuesdays was happening. So Angela, I put you on the spot to briefly talk about Kinship Caregivers Connect. Hopefully I did right by you.
No, that's okay. I knew the second I'd go to the bathroom, I was like, there's no way I'd get called on, but it's okay. But,
no worries. I know, it's very exciting. So if you wanted to say, I was just telling them, Angela, that we partnered with you last year, that, Barb made that connection with us. We partnered with you last year. We'll be partnering with you again this year to really make sure that we continued sort of your work at Ohio State that was losing its funding, and just making sure that we've got that option for families, because it is our third greatest need. And so this is a really good example of our community track and how we're trying to support the community at large and fill some of those gaps and barriers. So Angela, I didn't know if you wanted to share anything sort of in your own words, just about some of the things that you're doing on our community support level.
Sure, I'd love to. And thank you everyone who filled in for me. But yes, I've been running Kinship Caregivers Connect. It's going to be 2 years in June, which is kind of wild, but it's been amazing just to be able to run a support group for caregivers twice a week. And we've been able to expand with the support of Ohio Can. And really, I've had so many referrals come in through Ohio Can, and just met so many kinship caregivers from all over the state. And during COVID, obviously, there's a unique need for online supports. So we were able to step in and really connect families from all over Ohio on Zoom. But beyond just being online, I feel like real connections have been able to be made, and it's been cool to see caregivers stay with us for 1 year, 2 years as that time continues to grow. And then we've also really like to have community partners, kind of like Ohio Can says, from all over the state to get different resources out to caregivers. And I've made a lot of connections through Ohio Can, Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition. It started as a one-man show with all I had was some personal experience from my family, but it's really been able to grow from here. And I'm so grateful for the support of Ohio Can, because finding funding for things like this isn't easy for sure. So knowing that at least for another year, and hopefully many more beyond that, there'll be this support for kinship caregivers, and kind of seeing how that can grow throughout the state is so exciting to me. So I'm definitely grateful to everyone here, especially Ohio Can and OGKC. And it's good to see some faces from the support group on here as well. So thank you, Julia.
You're very welcome. We also have started partnering with Encompass adoptees. So based on the success of what Angela was doing, we wanted to make sure that we also had support for adoptive families as well, specific to that population. We know that the needs are different and the needs are also pretty similar, and our data shows that there are some things where they're very aligned, and there's some things where they're very different. So we are working on that partnership and excited about that. And another thing that we've brought sort of to the state that we believe will also really help kinship families is we've brought what's called the TAC training, which is the training on adoption competency. So it's a train the trainer model, sorry about that tongue twister, that we have partnered with CASE, not my alma mater, the Case Western University, but a different CASE. I believe they're, I don't know where they're based out of. The person I work with is based out of North Carolina, but I don't know if that's where their home base is or not. But they have this adoption the training on adoption competency that is really trying to get more mental health professionals who are trained in adoption, kinship, and really making sure that young people have access to the therapies and supports that they need. So we're also excited. We supported TAC training last year, and we will be supporting it this year. It's a year-long program. It's once a month, and it's for licensed therapists. So pretty excited about that. We are just wrapping up our first cohort, so we have 10 new trained therapists across the state. So again, pretty excited about that. Also on the community track, so coming to a county near you is probably the Ohio Justice Bus. This was our first stop up in Erie County. This was just this last Saturday. Our fourth greatest need, if we went to fourth on our slide, is legal. And so we have partnered with the Ohio Justice Foundation to bring the Justice Bus to different community events to get free legal guidance / consultation, so that families who are exploring custody, don't know quite what to do, or have any issues that they need to check in with a legal representation. So we're pretty excited about this partnership. Again, they'll be stopping at 30 locations all across the state. We're also partnered with Justice Mobile, which is Mindy Yoakum, who is just a really terrific lawyer who kind of does this on her own accord and really is a tremendous asset to the community as well. So we have 10 stops with Mindy Yoakum and her Justice Mobile, and 20 stops with the Ohio Justice Bus across the state. Those will all be happening by the end of June, and we're very excited. Just another way for us to reach and serve families as well. So wanted to share that with everybody as well. And thank you, Angela, for putting your website in there. I appreciate that. Okay, next slide. So how to make a referral. This is just if you are a provider, we do have a portal on our website. You can do the consent form, send that in to us that we can directly call families. We also have web inquiries, so families can sort of shoot us a message via the web and it emails us directly, and then we can reach out to them. You can always call, so we are happy to do that either on a 3-way call with the family, but we do require consent from that family specifically, so just want to make sure that everybody knows that we do have to have that consent piece. And then I want to talk about regional advisory councils. So regional advisory councils, and we also have a statewide advisory council, but they really help ensure that local needs and resources sort of are at the table, right? So we try to pull together a really diverse group of people, from lawyers to childcare providers to residential providers to mental health, recovery, really trying to make sure that as we're finding out about these gaps and barriers, how can we on a regional level really talk about what that's going to look like and how we can support that. I'm going to put Angela on the spot again. Hopefully she's not in the bathroom. There she is. I see her coming. She's on the Regional Advisory Council in Region 9. I believe. And so maybe talk about some of the things that you're doing down in Region 9.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm on the Region 9 Advisory Council, and it's cool to be able to have input into the things that OhioCan is doing before it's done. And I didn't realize each region, I guess, is so autonomous in the way to like the local needs. So they'll have all these statistics, but more at a local level, and then brainstorming different resources that can be brought in. And I think this next meeting is kind of for the next year, reevaluating like the values, the mission, and like things that we would want OhioCan to focus on the next year. And it's cool just how much input like we can have as community advocates or whatever our role is. So it is cool that they're involving people in the process of like what's next, and also like reflecting back to what's already been done. So yeah.
Thank you, Angela. One thing that's really interesting too about OhioCan, and I'll talk a little bit about sort of our early days in implementation. So OGKC was, there at the table with us from the beginning, sort of providing us thought partnership and just staying really curious with us and asking us a lot of good questions. Barb has continued to be on that as that particular program winded down as we sort of stabilized what would we call the program. Barb really has been at the table from the beginning, so thank you, Barb, for that. And Barb has transitioned over to still having a presence on our statewide advisory council. So much like Angela said, the regional teams really are looking at what is happening within their region. We then take all that information and aggregate it up to the state level. The state advisory council is just launching, so we're still working through some of the state data, but that regional piece is so important to us. So we have 23 site partners across the state who also are able to participate on the regional advisory councils. So this is where I'm going to put Patrick Donovan on the spot and see if he wants to talk a little bit about being an OhioCan site partner. And I think Michelle is here, who is a navigator for us as well. And so just really appreciate their support through our growing pains and our learning days as we sort of work to continue to build the program, but wondered if either of you wanted to jump in and just sort of talk about that a little bit. Hi, Patrick. Hi, Michelle.
Hello. Can everybody hear me? I think I've got myself off mute. Yes. So, I don't want to, my wheels are always turning when I'm hearing conversations about OhioCan, especially in a venue like this that I've been a part of for so many years. So, I am a site supervisor in Region 8. So Region 8 is the southeastern region of Ohio. And so it's oftentimes talked about as being in Appalachia. So we are in the country. And I think it's easy sometimes to kind of overlook what maybe some of the differences would be in Appalachia, or when you're out in the country like we are. We've got 13 counties, so we've got a lot of counties in comparison to some of the other regions. But from the standpoint or the mindset of if you think about like how long it takes. If you look at our region, if you were to drive from one end to the other, is so different than like the central Ohio region, where you can jump on I-70 or I-71 and be, basically on the other side of the region in an hour or less. So it covers a really large geographical area. And within that, you were talking about, I'm not sure what all you wanted me to get into, Julia, but as far as like the regional advisory councils, you're hearing some discussion about like childcare and anybody that's been with the Ohio Grandparent Kinship Coalition for any amount of time knows where I'm going with this, in that childcare has been a huge need for a long time. But within that need is in a couple different areas. First and foremost, it's extremely expensive. The average kinship caregiver is taking in 2 children, and here I know with our agency we've seen upwards of double digits in children where they've gotten legal custody of 10 or more children. So you think about the child care, and the cost is amazing. It's off the charts. So that's huge. But I think one of the things, if you're in a major city, that you might not think about are the number of child care centers. So if you look at the 13 counties in southeastern Ohio, with Muskingum being where I'm at, is one of the largest counties in the region, you find counties where you don't have any child cares to choose from. They're non-existent. So one of the things that our regional advisory council here in Region 8 has been doing is kind of getting our feelers out there. Not only, I know that I've gone personally to some of the daycare providers just to not only talk a little bit about Ohio Can, but to get a good list of who they are, so that when Michelle gets that call from somebody in Region 8 that wants help with childcare, that she can. We've got that place in the database to reference. So I guess that's my 2 cents on the Regional Advisory Council. Trying to think what else you were talking about, Julia. Yeah, I was a part of Ohio Can from its inception when it was first talked about. And I know that Barb's heard me say this. We went to bat when it's been probably 13 years or more that we started getting the recognition from leaders at the state that, okay, maybe this statewide thing is something. Maybe there needs to be in Ohio a Kinship Navigator in all counties. And lo and behold, finally, people were listening, and we've got Ohio Can. So, and Michelle's heard me talk this analogy a couple times, and that Ohio Can's a baby. It's kind of like I'm familiar with child welfare and children and watch them grow, and some of the struggles that you see, and is the difference between an infant and a toddler, or a lot of people talk about like the terrible twos. So Ohio Can is an infant. We're 2 years in, so I guess you could say maybe terrible twos, but I think we've kind of maybe even moved past the terrible twos to like maybe 3, 4, and 5. So we're figuring out what the baby needs. We're making some changes, and or Ohio Can is making some changes. I think they've come a long way. It's been really interesting for me to kind of sit not sit in the back, because I've been active with Ohio Can, but from the standpoint of I'm not employed by Ohio Can, and I can see the navigators and the regional directors and the coaches and some of the things that they're doing, and I can see their wheels turning. So I think Ohio Can's got a ways to go, but I think they've also come a long ways. And I'll just be really, really interested, and I've got my fingers crossed that at some point down the line, hopefully this is a program that is recognized as evidence-based and well supported to the point where we're able to draw down those federal dollars from the Family and First Prevention Services Act. So I don't want to. I'll shut up for a minute. I can go on, but I don't want to take over. So.
No, thank you, Patrick. That was so helpful. And as I said in the beginning, a lot of the good work that Patrick did was, Protect Ohio and the Kinship Support Intervention that's now on the Clearinghouse. We really took a lot of that shared knowledge and learning from all of our advocacy groups and all of our stakeholders across the state. And, as Patrick said, we've learned a lot in the last 2 years. We've had some fits and starts, maybe even some toddler tantrums, but we're definitely continuing to listen to our partners, again, those regional advisory council teams, and all of the support from folks like OGKC. OFCA is one of our partners as well. And just, all of our partners. Again, we have 23 site partners across the state, from everything from Spectrum of Findlay in Ohio, which is an agency serving LGBTQ plus families, and to Ethiopian Twadeo Social Services in Columbus that's serving a refugee population, to a school and an education service center and a recovery center and, and everything in between. So really just trying to work across the community to see if we can solve some of these really challenging issues. And, on the statewide advisory council, we've got some folks from childcare, from different perspectives on that team, and really looking to think creatively about how we can help resolve some of these issues. I will pass it to Michelle. Michelle, I didn't know if you just wanted to say a couple of things from your perspective of being a navigator, either, something you like about being a navigator or something that you hear from families pretty frequently. And then we can go ahead and open it up to questions.
Sorry, I start talking and then I realize I'm on mute. So
I do it every day, Michelle, so don't feel bad.
I love being a navigator because I'm on the phones, I answer the calls from the families, and I have an opportunity to give them resources and support. A lot of the families don't realize the resources are out there. So I just am very happy that I get to share those resources with our families. And then sometimes there's challenges with them trying to get to those resources. There's obstacles along the way. And so I work with them, I collaborate with them to help them get what they need. So I just feel that this job is very rewarding. I leave at night very happy that I got to help someone within our community. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you, Michelle. And Michelle is a wealth of knowledge there in her region, which is, again, why we really wanted to make sure that we had that regional approach, because Patrick and Michelle know their area way better than I do. I'm Ohio transplant by trade, right? I'm a Michigander in my soul. I've been in Ohio 20 plus years, but I'm a Clevelander. And so, what do I know about what's happening? It's beautiful down there. I will give you that. I love to visit, but these folks that are there doing the work day to day, they really know their stuff. And I think that's a really big bonus to how the program was designed, thanks to many of the people on this call. So thank you, Michelle, for all your hard work. We did Navigator Appreciation Week last week, which was quite fun. So I'm making sure all of our navigators know how much we care for them and appreciate the work they do every day, because we know they're doing really good things. So thank you again. And then we just have materials are available on request. So if anybody needs any handouts or information flyers, we're happy to send that your way. So just let me know. And that wraps up sort of the formal part of the presentation. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen and open it up to questions that many people maybe have.
Don't be shy. If anyone have a question, please go ahead and ask the speakers.
I'll throw something out there. I'm always good at throwing one question out there. So were you a little bit surprised by the radio, like how many calls you got on the radio piece of it?
We were shocked. Like I said, we were like, let's just try it. Like, that's sort of the Ohio Can way. Like we get ideas and we're like, well, let's just see what happens. And it was like immediate, particularly in the more rural areas. Like we were doing really well with phone calls and of course, we call it the 3 C's, Cleveland, Columbus, and Cincinnati. But really the uptick in your region, Patrick, from the radio. We also did really targeted print ad in newspapers in places like Athens and around. So, far southeast Ohio, we did that. So we really were able to kind of watch it over the couple of years and really pinpoint hey, let's try this. But we're on a bazillion radio stations. We're on NPR, country, R&B, we are everywhere. People call me all the time. I heard you on the radio. I heard you. Not me, but the program on the radio. So yeah, we were very surprised. And as we've been presenting to other states about how we got the word out, we are telling people like, this is our most shocking piece of information in the outreach world. Far better than social media, just really impactful.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Are there any other questions for the speakers? Any comments?
I can ask a question too. I'm really good at that. I was just wondering, I guess stepping into this role as being like an advocate for kinship families and adopted families like statewide, obviously like all the basic needs supports and other supports aren't there. I guess how has OhioCAN stepped in as a role of like an advocate for these different family types and like the relationship with the state?
Yeah, so we share with the state, that's a good question. We share with the state our gaps and barriers and have the state on the statewide advisory council. So a number of members from the state are on that particular advisory council so that they can hear sort of firsthand. I would say that that is an area where we're still working and building. And we're also doing a lot sort of, we're sharing a lot of our data. How's that? So many people didn't have access to this statewide data. So like we've supplied like Policy Matters Ohio with some of our data around childcare, and like really trying to make sure that the data that we have is for everybody, so that when there are advocacy groups that need pieces and parts of information from us, that we can supply them with that information and really make sure that we're getting the information out there, because we need sort of the grassroots level as well as the state level, right? We're seeing some really interesting things happen on sort of the regional level with some partnerships. Like I'll tell you, in Region 1, they had an agency and a church come together to start a support group, right? So you've got different pieces and pockets that are really trying to do some cool things. There's some work in like the peer-to-peer for judges, right? Because judges sometimes don't always favor kinship supports, and so, or kinship placements, I should say. And so how do we partner judges in particular regions to learn and grow from each other? So there's a lot happening within I would say the regional level as well as the state level to try to keep the momentum going in that grassroots piece, as well as sort of elevating it up to the state level. So continuing to really partner with the state, but also, you know, the best way that we can see that we can support at this time is really by sharing our data pretty openly. These are the needs, these are the things we're seeing. Here's who's on benefits, here's who's not doing childcare scans, sort of like Patrick said, who, you know, advocating this area doesn't have any childcare centers. How can we support that? And also some of the things that we're doing too is like, if you're in cohort 1, we will pay a family member to provide respite and care. We can't do it long term because, as Patrick mentioned, it's like exponentially expensive and we don't have that kind of money, but we've had families invoice us, like, so their aunt or uncle or sibling for caring for a period of time. And also we do a lot of support in summer camps around that too. So again, just these sort of pocketed, targeted, we're trying to work with the YMCAs. I know we've worked with YMCAs to give kinship families discounts across the state. Like, so just sort of lots of different ways that we're trying to advocate, both small and large ways. So I hope that answers the question. Maybe it was a little long-winded, but there's like so many things, like my brain starts popcorning about like, oh, we're doing this, and this group is doing this. So.
Rebecca has a question, and she wrote in the chat, how can you be involved in the advisory council?
Yeah, so Rebecca, we would love to talk to you about that. I will put my email in that. I will put my email in the chat, and if you can tell me where you live, I can then connect you to the right region and the right director. So you can reach out to me directly. So that's great.
Is there any special thing? Is there any special background they need? And just for the audience that's here, what would that consist of in terms
Yeah.
of one film? Can you talk about that real quick?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, Dr. Jones. So it is generally, they meet, each regional advisory council is slightly different, but in general, they meet every other month. They have what we call bridge work in the middle, which is doing specific, like Patrick said, like researching childcare or talking to different people. So each group will sort of have an action plan that they're working off of. So depending on what kind of subgroup you're on, you might meet monthly, you might meet every 6 weeks. That's really determined by those subgroups, but the formal councils typically meet every other month. But again, there's work sort of in the middle. We do pay a lived experience stipend of $25 per hour for anybody that has lived experience. So want to make sure that we're paying people equitably for their time. So we pay for their bridge work time if they're pulled into any special focus groups. So I mentioned that sometimes Ohio Can will pull a handful of people in together to get some quick, rapid feedback and iteration on some ideas that we have. Again, that's how we got Amber's position and started that benefits piece. But that is, the commitment varies, but I would say on average, it's a couple hours a month.
Thank you.
You're
Angela, I
welcome.
have a question. Angela?
So I'm going back to Julia, where she mentioned like they've partnered with the YMCA and stuff for discounts.
Mhm.
I'm a recent receiver of my grandson through emergency custody through the court system.
Mhm.
Now, CPS had 3 cases, would not pull him, closed every case and said, no problem. The judge pulled him on emergency custody. Like the YMCA will not give me the kinship because I do not have a CPS caseworker to sign off on it. I'm running
That's
into-
interesting.
I'm
Where do
running
you-
I'm running into roadblocks everywhere. I'm getting no help because I didn't go through CPS. I went through a private attorney and a court system.
Mhm.
I'm not qualifying for stuff. But I'm in
Mhm.
Stark County and it's the Maslin Stark one. The guy was actually not too nice to me when I said, why are you punishing me because I don't have a caseworker and stuff?
Mhm.
I live 3 blocks from a Y. I would love to get my grandson and stuff.
Mhm.
And childcare was another thing.
Yeah, Angela, if you are open to it, the best, I can connect you to that regional team, but you can also call that Ohio Can directly. So that's at 1-844 Ohio Can to see if they can help you. The partnerships, we just started our budding. So it was actually started in Region 1, which is the very northwest corner of the state. So think like Findlay to the Indiana border, basically. But we are really working with them to help push it more across the state. And we just started in the last 2 months, our conversations across the state. But I'd be happy to connect you directly to your region. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, God. If you wanted to put your email in the chat, I can make that connection.
I
Or your phone
actually
number.
have a conference call set up with the benefits coordinator.
Oh, with
on
Amber.
Monday. Yeah. Michaela set me up before
Oh,
she went
good.
on maternity leave. So
Oh, that's awesome.
because
Oh,
I
that's
just got
good.
to the point where I'm like, I need help.
Yeah.
That's great, Angel. Also, we are hiring. Amber's very busy, so she's proven to be a very popular human. So we are looking for additional staff and have open positions for another benefits person to help support the family. So we realized that the wait was maybe a little bit long, Angel. We're working on that. Again, it sort of was quiet, boom, skyrocketed for Amber's services. So the word is getting out, which is great.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to pass it back to you, Dr. Jones, because I know we're coming up on time.
Are there any other questions for the speakers? If not, thank you. This has been very informative. Our next meeting will be in June, and that speaker will be Nancy Mendoza from Ohio State. She'll be coming to share with us. They're working on the Kinship Care Project, and so she'll be coming to share with us what that consists of. So get the word out. It's every 4th Wednesday at 1:00. Thank you for the information. Thank you for your time. Thank you for just pass the word on so we can get more people on to get all this good information. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you so very much.